So, hi everyone, welcome to the Property Page podcast. My name is Bradley Clark, and today I've got my good friend Tyler. We've known each other for a good few years now, started working together in a estate agency probably 4 years ago.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, you were at Finer Country, I was at Newman's. And now look where we both are now.
Across the office from each other. Yeah, that's a throwback. It's been a journey since, that's for sure.
It really has. So obviously I've gone on to do the service accommodation side of things, and then you've gone on to do some pretty big and impressive things as well. So what are you currently working on at the moment then?
So right now I've got my main focus property wise is more land developments, and so we've got, as of right now, 3 land acquisitions sort of in the pipeline, but still in the legals phase. So we haven't completed on the purchase, so can't dive too much into what exactly they are, but residential developments with planning, these ones. We're working some in the background that will take through the planning process, but just to get on site quickly this year. Buying 3 currently with planning, and then build them out and work on some other projects.
What sort of size deals are they?
So GDVs in the region of smallest one just under 4 million, all the way up to one that we've appraised at 10 million. But if we can sort of push the numbers and push the sizes of the properties with the architects, we could be looking at a 15 million GDV on the biggest one. And that's anyway, these are 10 to 20 unit size schemes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for the people out there that are looking to get into developments, I don't want to go straight into obviously the education side of things, which we both do.
Sure.
But how do you go about, just simple questions, how do you go about finding the deals, and how do you go about the finance the deals as well? What's the sort of process?
Finding deals is obviously one of the key skills. I think finding the deals, first of all, you have to have a good understanding of the planning system, understanding how planning law works, what determines whether a site will get planning permission or not, because if a piece of land can't get planning permission, you can't build on it. It's really not worth anything, not to a developer anyway. And then from that, you can either find deals that have planning either in place or pending already, or you can find sites that you can take through the planning process yourself and benefit from the uplift in value from planning. And there's various ways. One is through agents. One is through using planning permission data. So from sources like Planning Pipe, and then one is through mapping softwares like Nimbus or Land Insight. Yeah. And I sort of break it down into those 3, and I call it hot, warm, and cold. You've got the hot leads, which are through agents, because they're hot because if a piece of land with planning is on the market with an agent, that's hot. They definitely want to sell. And if you can offer what the seller wants, there's a deal to be done, and probably pretty quickly as well. But the downside of that is, one, you're competing with a lot of other buyers because it's publicly advertised. You're probably going to be paying more for the property, and there is less of a volume. If you're trying to look for land on with agents, there's a lot available, but not a huge amount of volume to go at. And then warm is I sort of refer to like the planning data. So for example, Planning Pipe, you can essentially get the data of all the planning applications that are submitted, approved, whatever, sent through to you for whatever time frame you look, and then you can write to and contact those landowners or architects, whoever's representing the planning application. Benefit of that is it is although it's not completely hot, because they may be taking it through planning themselves to keep and retain. Some of them may be looking to take it through planning and sell. So there's no guaranteed deal to be done. The benefit though is, one, there is a little bit more volume because there's more to go at than what's probably available on the open market online. And also less competition from other buyers, because if you can approach sort of a landowner directly, you can do a deal directly rather than going through an agent. It's probably advertising it. And then cold is going on these mapping softwares, identifying plots of land which you think has precedent to get planning, approaching them, maybe with like a letter, a direct approach, registering your interest. The reason I say it's cold is because you can approach someone with a field on the side of a village that could maybe get planning for 4 houses, but they may not want to sell it.
Yeah.
In fact, probably 95% of people aren't going to sell it. We find we get a sort of a 10%, just over 10% response rate from letters we send out. But the benefit is, one, if you can agree something with a landowner, you can probably get a really good price. You'll be able to, if it hasn't got planning already, you could take it through planning and benefit from planning. And then thirdly, there is a huge amount of volume to go out. You could send out thousands and thousands of letters to landowners directly. And so that's sort of how I explain it, the hot, warm and cold method.
So is there an ideal situation for you out of all that then?
So sort of the 3 projects we're purchasing at the minute, we are buying those with planning, one of which was through an agent, 2 of which direct with a landowner. We want to buy them with planning because we want to get on site and sort of get the cash flow in straight away. But the margins are tighter. We're looking at the 20 to 25% profit margin, pre-finance costs. And then one's in the background. We're still approaching sites we want to take through planning.
Yeah.
And so when we get the planning and the uplift on the land, we can essentially create equity in that deal, which is easier to raise finance for. And so there are bigger profit margins, but it could take you 12 months to take a site through planning. So there is no ideal situation, really. The ideal situation is we come across a parcel of land that's handed to us with a huge profit margin in that's ready to go straight away. But like I said, with the hot, warm and cold method, there's pros and cons to each. And it just depends on the situation you're in and what you want, and what sort of your business plan maps out.
And for the people out there that are our sort of age and older as well, that obviously see someone like yourself, and what are you, 24?
Just turned 24 last month, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously I've done different bits and bobs at 22, maybe not sort of on the scale that you're doing them, but for people out there that want to get into the development side of things and want to start doing these deals, I feel like one of the issues I think a lot of people, maybe the issue with the conversation we just had, is I feel like there's a lot skipped over. So I want to understand exactly how people go from start to finish. So obviously getting themselves educated, we can talk about obviously what you offer as well, but how they go about, I know you touched on it, but start to finish, so someone wants to find a deal, or someone wants to get educated, find the deal, and then find the finance. What's the exact way to do that, ins and outs? Because I'm guessing what a lot of people are thinking, it sounds too good to be true, that you can go find a deal, sort of build the properties, make the profit, and then it's done. So how would you go about the ins and outs of the bits of...
well, it's definitely not too good to be true. But there's a couple of ways. One, if you just want to go straight into land developments, you absolutely can. But I think one of the biggest reasons people don't is confidence. And I'm a big believer that competence breeds confidence. And so by that, I mean, essentially, if someone's better educated, they sort of have done it before, or they know the ins and outs, they're going to be far more confident approaching landowners, approaching agents, negotiating these sort of deals and putting these deals together. And so either you can just either work with someone that's done it before, get a mentor, educate yourself, whatever way you want, or you can start small. And so for me, I started, did my first deal when I was 18, and I knew nothing about construction, not even refurbishing a house. I bought the first property I bought. I didn't know what walls needed replastering, what walls didn't. I didn't know what walls needed taking back to brick, what needed skimming, what needed new bonding plaster. I didn't even know what the difference was.
Yeah,
I didn't even know there was asbestos in the ceilings and the whole ceilings had to be plasterboarded. I didn't even know what plasterboard was. Like, I knew like nothing, but started small, learned, winged it. I'm very fortunate in the development business I'm in. I've got a great business partner, Rosie, who has had a great background in development. And so I've learned 90% probably from her around the development side of things.
I worked with that bloke for about 10 minutes.
Which bloke?
Her old man.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Did a bit of labouring for a few months in the freezing cold before I thought this is grim. This is painful. But there's loads of aspects of the whole process, so I was very much starting at the bottom. But even that, I learned a lot. I learned a lot off her old man. He was great to have a chat to in lunch breaks and things. Talked about how do you go about finding the deal, how'd you do it really. So yeah, he was good to chat to.
Yeah, it's amazing how much you learn just by surrounding yourself with people that are doing it.
Yeah, sorry. So I sort of interrupted you then. You were saying about obviously how about you go about finding these deals, and what about the finance side of things? That's one thing I'd be really interested to know.
With financing, especially with land developments, you're very much rewarded, and the skill is in putting deals together. And when I say putting deals together, that's not just finding a land, doing an appraisal, being a good negotiator, and agreeing a price that works. It's also how can you structure that and put a deal together with either an investor or an institution that arranges the finance to make all that work. That's finance is very much a big part of the deal and putting the deal together. The deal, it doesn't just refer to what am I buying, what's the price, it's how you're financing it. And so with land developments, you can very much finance them. I never like to say with no money because there has to be money there. It can be very much with none of your own money, or I would say very little of your own money, because you're probably in a situation where you have to pay for legal fees, architect's fees, planning fees. Again, you can structure it in a way where those fees are covered by an investor you work with. But essentially, in very simple terms, you can fund something with debt, either in the form of a development loan, development finance, but development finance will only cover so much of the total costs. So if you have a land purchase of £1 million, a build out, a construction cost of £3 million, there's £4 million worth of costs there. A development finance company isn't going to give you the £4 million unless you've got an absolutely impeccable track record and an impeccable relationship with that bank, but very, 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 very rare. Unless you already have equity in the deal that you've created. So for example, if you've taken that land at £1 million actually through planning and you actually acquired it for £200,000, took it through planning, it's now worth £1 million with planning, you've created £800,000 worth of equity. Development finance loan will look at that equity and that you've created. So essentially you've put money into the planning, you put money into architect's fees, legals to create that equity. You can then have development finance in forms of debt, or it could be from private individual, whatever. And then you can also bring on or look at the equity side of things. And so the way we structure these deals is we offer the investors equity in the form of we deliver that development in an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, which is just a limited company which sole purpose is deliver that site, and we can offer the investor shares in that company. There's various ways we can structure that, and they can put up a lot of the money for the equity the development finance wants to see. So let's say, for example, development finance company are happy to provide 80% of total costs. They want to see someone putting in 20%, a 20% deposit. That's the equity that you're putting in because they want to see skin in the game. That equity doesn't necessarily have to be from you. It could be from an investor who's part of your company. And so if you have a company, Bradley Clark Developments Limited, and you have an SPV, so Bradley Clark Developments Stratford Limited for a site you have in Stratford, you can say to an investor, well, look, have a 50% shareholding in the SPV. If you put some money in, you can then get the development finance to cover the rest. Now, it's not always that easy as well. A development finance company, if they're going to loan you money, they're going to want to see that you've got a bit of a track record. They essentially want to see a development CV to show that you're competent in delivering deals or you've done developments before. That may mean you've worked in construction, you've maybe done smaller deals. And so if you're at a point where you've done absolutely zero, you may want to look to work with a partner that has done developments or again, start small, work your way up, do smaller projects, build up a bit of a track record. But the debt doesn't have to be from a development finance company. It could be from a high net worth individual who's maybe not so fussed.
More of an armchair investor.
More of an armchair investor. And again, it depends on how much of a loan you need. If you only need 50% of costs from a development finance company, they're probably going to be more lenient than if you need 85%. So there's a lot of variables that come into play. But point being is with developments, you're just rewarded for putting the deals together. Not so much if you're a buy-to-let investor, you sort of need the capital. You're being rewarded for the money you put in. You're making your money work for you. With developments, you're being rewarded for your ability to put these deals together.
Would you recommend people jumping straight into developments, or would you say to do a little bit like your journey where you started with and I did interrupt you earlier, but you mentioned that you started with a flip, and then what progressed from that to where you are now doing these sort of amazing 15 million GDV developments? What's the in between process?
So first property deal I did, to provide a more clarity and detail on it, was a 2-up, 2-down terraced house, end terrace house in Coventry. I always struggle to remember the exact numbers. It was maybe around £85,000 or 80 to £85,000. Maybe it was 80. I don't know. Refurbished it, sold it for I think 131. There was 26,000 profit in that after all costs, finance costs, in and out fees, legals.
And how was that found and funded?
Not easy. That was probably the hardest deal I've ever done. Prior to that, I was educating myself. I was attending courses, seminars, free events, paid events. I probably offered on 20 different properties, probably more than 20. I viewed countless. I couldn't put a number on it. Rejections. There was a couple properties I was trying to buy and then fell through for whatever reason. And then this one was actually through an agent. I remember it was a Thursday. I had the Rightmove notification come through on my phone. Called the agent straight away. I saw that the property had potential for an uplift in value to be forced. Essentially, it was very run down, vacant as well. So all the telltale signs that there's a deal to be had and money to be made. Told them I want to view it straight away. They said, well, we don't have the keys until Saturday. So I went around Saturday. Before I went in, I saw some people viewing it come out. As I left the viewing, the more people go in. So I knew there was competition. But I put a offer forward that was worded very well, that was very compelling. I sort of took a lot of time speaking to the agent to understand the seller's situation. I actually spoke to the couple of neighbours. They gave me some inside information. And I knew that actually price wasn't that important. It was more about timescales and capability to just get the deal done quickly and stick to my word. And so I presented a very an offer that sort of catered to that, got accepted.
And how did you put yourself in a position to be able to make that offer?
So I was working as an estate agent at the time. Now, I had probably starting at around, I can't remember the exact numbers, around £15,000 maybe. And I'm very much not, I don't recommend this. I'm one of these people that I'll just like commit to wanting to do something and then figure out the rest along the way. So it was never much in my mind like, oh, I don't have all the money I need to do this. It was like, well, let me just make the offer, see if I can get it accepted, because that's step one.
Then work out the rest later.
And then just work out the rest. And so I was working as an estate agent, saved a bit of cash, and I'd had loads of businesses growing up, probably like 3 e-commerce businesses, some kind of worked, some completely didn't make any money at all, buying, selling things on eBay, an events business. So I had like, I'd always been entrepreneurial. This wasn't my first rodeo, and had that sort of money saved. Did a residential mortgage, which obviously is a bit of a grey area. So by that, I mean, I could put a 10% deposit down. And being completely honest, I thought, well, maybe I could live here. And so it wasn't like, oh, my intention is just use a residential mortgage, flip it. Because when you use a mortgage instead of bridging, there's the sort of 6-month rule.
And did you get that on a first-time buyers?
Yeah, so this was a first-time buy for me. And so I think I didn't pay any stamp duty at that purchase price. I put a 10% deposit down plus legals. I was probably 10% deposit was probably £8,500, depending on the purchase price. Maybe like 10 grand. And then it needed like 25 grand's worth of work, which I didn't really know at the time. I didn't know whether it was going to cost me 10 grand, whether it was going to cost me 25 grand. All I knew was there was like between what I'm paying for it and what it's going to be worth when it's done up was like 50,000. I thought, well, there's no way it's going to cost me 50 grand. So even if it costs me 40, I've made a little bit of profit. For me, it was just about doing that first deal to learn. I was like, oh, this isn't about the money. This is just about, getting to grips and having a bit of fun with it. And so I used credit cards, borrowed money from friends, family, probably to the point where I didn't know if my card was going to get declined in Sainsbury's because I was just like hemorrhaging through cash pretty much every paycheck I had. Pay my car payment, pay whatever else, and then the rest was just pay the plasterers, pay the electrician, pay whatever. And then saw there was a couple houses that sold on that street for a pretty good price, more than what I thought. And then, put it up on the market, had a frenzy of buyers, sold it, made the profit. So that £8,500, I know that the probably be like £15,000 savings I had was now 40 grand. I thought, okay, now I've got enough to actually properly put a proper deposit down on the next one. Did another one. There was one that actually made me, again, I can't remember the exact numbers. I think I paid 80 grand for one. Spent 20 on it or 25 and it sold for 170. So it was like 65, 70 grand profit. And the house next door sold the year before, same bedrooms, nice spec, 135. And so I thought if I can get 135 for it, like that's a very good comparable. That's what I'm aiming for. And then I did an open house to sell it.
Is that the one we sold at Newman's?
No.
There was one we sold at Newman's, wasn't there?
There was one.
Was that your first one?
That was the first one.
Because the one we did an open house, and to say we, but I remember just being in the office at the time when it went massively over.
Yeah, so I actually acted as the agent selling.
Yeah.
Selling the first one. And then, so I got a good price from the agent. But yeah, this other one I did, I thought if I get it for 130, sell it for 135, I'll be happy. And then there's just a massive bidding war between the buyers. Just let them do their thing. And the offer we agreed was 170. So he did it to a nice spec. And yeah. And then continued to work as an agent. Actually relocated to North London, where house prices were £4 or £5 million. And I was, just for context, working as like a self-employed estate agent where we both were. And so it's very much commission only, finding country.
Which is great if you're very good at what you do. Awful if you're not.
Yeah, and moving to North London was a massive risk because the market had taken a massive dump and there was a few nice commission paid checks, but actually in the end, it was very hard to shift stock, and that's why I called it quits with agency. And it's probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
A great place to start learning from to be able to do what you do now.
Yeah, and I recommend to a lot of people that ask me like, where should I get started? I think working as an estate agent is a great way, one, to learn about how property transactions work. It's a great way to learn about how a seller's mind works, also how a buyer's mind works. It's a great way to learn sales, to learn negotiation, all these incredibly high value skills, to build contacts, how the legal process works. You meet investors. And if you're good at the job and you're in the right role and working for the right company, you can make a really good income, and you don't need a degree. You don't need a qualification. You don't need a license. If anything, with the estate agency industry, there's such low barriers to entry. If you've got a pulse and can stand up and have a car, there'll be someone that can hire you. And then it's just down to you to learn and go out there and smash it. So Yeah, it's a great way to get started.
And so obviously then you said about obviously not being in the estate agency industry anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So after London, you decided to stop, and what happened from then on?
Sort of moved into the education space a little bit.
Is that predominantly where you focus now?
Yes. I had no idea what it sort of evolved into at the time. I just knew I wanted to move back out of North London, move back to the Midlands. But I had a very small audience on social media, but at the same time getting inundated with messages from people, young people, saying, how can I get started? How do I get started? And I would just at the time tell people, oh, maybe look at this course, maybe look at that. But it was very hard for me to recommend a training provider just because I'd been through the minefield of property education. I know how much of a minefield it can be and how low the standards were. Not that it was bad. I think actually a lot of time, if you've got a basic understanding, you can go out and wing a lot of it. But if you had the right training, the right mentorship, you would accelerate your learning curve by years. And a lot of people say, well, no, I want to learn from you. He said, even I'd recommend, I went on this 3-day course, I went on this 1-day course, I read this book, whatever this. I don't know, I want to learn from you. I don't teach. But then I sort of clicked with, okay. So there was this one day where I rented a very small office space in Birmingham, and I pretty much said to probably a couple thousand followers I had on Instagram, if you want to come learn from me one day, one afternoon, I'll just tell you what I know. And it's like £100 a head. I didn't even want to make money. I was just sort of a bit of a good deed. I think we had about 10 people there, maybe. I only had 10 seats. So I guess say it was sold out. And then it sort of clicked. I don't have the presentation I did that day, but it was very basic information. And what I thought was maybe a common knowledge, but what I thought was pretty basic knowledge, working as an agent. To most people, especially 17, 18, 19-year-olds, no idea how estate agents work, how the conveyancing process works, how to actually find good deals. And sort of thing clicked to my mind, okay, well, maybe look, 1, I can help people doing this. 2, I actually enjoy teaching. And 3, it is a revenue producing activity. It does produce cash flow. And if anyone ever hears me teach about property, I always say, number 1, cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. You need cash flow. If you don't have cash flow, you're going to struggle. Or your journey's going to take a lot longer than it should. Okay, well, there's a cash flow business to be had here. And then I started meeting a couple of the people that are sort of in the education space or coaching, consulting, course space, whatever you want to call it, various different industries, saw that they're making great cash flow out of it. And I thought, okay, I've always had a passion for sort of online business, online marketing. Like I said earlier, when I was 15, 16, 17, I had various online businesses, e-commerce. I say businesses, they were really nothing. But the passion was there. And so, okay, well, let me just create a program that I wish I had access to when I was 16, 17, starting out my journey, that just explained pretty much everything you need to know very clearly, very little jargon. Because I remember the first 3-day course I went on, I didn't even know how mortgage worked. And it wasn't until I started actually going these programs and working as an agent that I began to learn these things. Let me just explain everything. Did really well, learned, okay, how to sort of attract customers for that. Was still doing a couple property projects in the background, scaled that up, sort of paused it 18 months ago, maybe 12 months ago now. Sometimes I'd push it more than others. And then Rosie, my business partner, who I've known for probably 10 years, we went to school together. She approached me. She was doing consulting work anyway and said, well, let's help other people. She wanted to help people in development space. There wasn't really much property development education out there. And any that was good, but it wasn't from any incredibly credible people. Not to the extent that Rosie and the family business that she's working for had. And Rosie is by far one of the smartest people I know when it comes to development. And I think a lot of people underestimate the level of knowledge she has, because she has been immersed in it since before she could talk or walk. And I've always been blown away by it and always been fascinated by it. Working as an agent, sort of worked with Cassidy Group, their family business, as well on a couple of their sites, acting on behalf of them as well. And so we created an education program together, scaled that up. That did really well. We sort of hit a really sweet spot in the market. We built an absolutely incredible program, which took us a year to put together. And I'm just about to relaunch one of my property investment training programs. And for me, they're cash flow businesses. They help people and make a positive impact on people's life. I'm very passionate about raising the standards in property education. And if they don't help people, or people don't feel like they've had their value, we offer them their money back, no questions asked. We're very much here to help people, but it's also a cash flow business. And I don't hide that. I think a lot of property educators hide the fact that they are making money from teaching people. For some reason, they feel it's a little bit taboo, but I don't think they explain why they do it. And I think, going back to what I said earlier, you need cash flow first. And property isn't just, okay, how much can you make from property? You need that cash flow, because if you're trading your time for money on a minimum wage, saving up to buy a house, it's going to be a long time before you can put a £35,000 deposit down, or even a £10,000 deposit down on a house. And even if you do, and you've bought an investment property, you've bought a flip project, a buy to sell project, you need something to cash flow in the background. So property is very much a game of 1, building cash flow, 2, building wealth. And so for me, it's a cash flow business. But where my real, wealth or the money's going to be made is on the longer term projects that I'm working on now. But they won't be paydays until 12 months, 18 months time.
So you're using the money from the programs that you're selling, the cash flow, to be able to fund the deals that you're doing, or at least starting the process of funding the deals.
Yeah. So like some of the deals are, most of the deals are actually funded by investors. Yeah. We actually use very little of our own capital, using a lot of the cash flow to purchase property with. Personally, it funds my lifestyle. I have the lifestyle I've always dreamed of. I've got the place I wanted to live in for a long time. I've got a passion for cars, so it allows me to buy cars. But what I'm really doing is using that cash flow, to funnel into property interest that's going to build me wealth long term, because I think a lot of people don't understand the correlation between income and wealth. You can have a high income, but what you're doing with that income really determines how wealthy you're going to be. I like the analogy of income is like water flowing through a hose. Wealth is the bucket that you're pouring the water into. And if you've got a high income and you've got a high flow of water through that hose, but you're pissing it everywhere, then you're not going to fill up that bucket of wealth. But if you've just got, even if you've just got a small flow of water, a small income, but you're putting it in the right places, then you'll quickly fill up that bucket. And so,
what's yours and Rosie's role within the business at the moment? So obviously you're collectively working on the development program.
Yeah.
And then collectively working on the actual developments themselves. And the name of that is Newman.
So Newman Rose is the name of our development company.
Which you got some big ambitions and goals with that going forward.
Yeah, of course. I think if you're not setting out to be the biggest or best at something, what's the point?
No, of course. And so what are your current roles with maybe you and Rosie on the development program, and then you and Rosie on the actual developments?
So on the education business we have together, I'm very much on the back end. And so the marketing, the systems, managing the sales team, everything behind the scenes. Rosie is the one, I say, delivering the content. Now it's a 60-hour program of 60 hours of recorded content on the program. And so she's not having to deliver content live all the time, because we want to be full-time developers, not full-time educators, not fall into that trap. Also, we think it's better for the learning of students to be able to have something that's recorded they can go back and replay, especially with something as thorough and as intense as what it's like to teach development. To just throw it at someone in 3 days would be way too much information. And so Rosie engages with the community. There's live Q&A calls. There's a Facebook group she responds to. helping members out. But it's probably no more than 1 to 2 hours a week maximum from her. From me, it's probably 30 minutes to an hour a day. A lot of Facebook ads, the marketing, the systems, checking in with the sales teams, making sure everything's all on track. But I've very much systemized and automated the business and created systems I can remove myself from. Don't get me wrong, it's not easy. It's still hard work. It's still very stressful, but that's our roles on the education side. On the development side, we very much do a lot of the same things. I played a big part in finding and putting the deals together. Rosie's very good at sort of navigating the planning process. And so the projects we've got in the pipeline they're currently going through an outline application, very close to approval. But with that, to get it to full detailed planning, there's some steps we need to take. And so I help with raising the finance. Rosie does too. We very much do pretty much a lot of everything together. But I know as things progress, our roles will become more clearly defined and we'll start playing to our strengths.
Yeah.
But at the minute, we're all mucking in to just get the deals done, over the line, etc.
That sounds great. And one of the things you mentioned earlier was about raising the standards in the property game. So it's sort of a two-part question really is, what do you see people aren't doing in the property education space at the moment?
Yep.
What they're doing wrong, and also what you are doing differently with. So just so people understand, you've got your development program and then your own program as well?
Yeah. So essentially I'm part of 2 education companies. I'm sure soon they'll come under the same umbrella, but the education company teaching development, so property development mastery, plus a couple of the programs we're working on under that umbrella. And then through my personal brand, I've got my own education company. So essentially part of 2. But yeah, for me, it's all cash flow to then fund our interests. So yeah, that's...
So sorry, as I say, in terms of raising the standards then. So
okay.
Obviously what current educators are doing and then what you're going to go ahead and do differently.
So there are educators out there that are under a lot of heat at the minute. Whether they deserve it or not, I don't know. I've not attended a lot of their trainings. I know people that have. I know people that know them. We've got a lot of students that have joined our program, on the development program, that have been through some of these educators training. Some of them had great success. Some of them have got a lot of bad things to say about it. I think one thing people need to understand is that these property education companies are sales and marketing companies, as well as education companies. Sales and marketing is a big part of any business. And so if you're turning up to a free event and you're getting upset that you're being sold to,
what did you expect?
Yeah, no, what did you expect? There are boundaries, and as soon as heavy pressure selling comes into play and there's, what's the word I'm looking for? Deception, then yeah, there's a boundary that's been crossed. Do I think that happens a lot? Not really. I think the biggest mistake a lot of property educators make is in their service delivery, because I wouldn't have a problem. I think most people wouldn't have a problem if, these educators had great sales and marketing techniques to get people into their sales funnel, to take their money off them. But if they actually then taught them and the service delivery was there, that actually they really genuinely helped people and over-delivered and provided great value for money, then there probably won't be an issue. The trouble is when you scale up a business, and this is where a couple of them have gone wrong, is when you scale up too fast, cracks begin to show. And if you can't keep up with the demand, things go wrong, customers aren't happy. And if that keeps happening, the bullshit catches up with you, which is sort of what happened. On the flip side, and this is quite a controversial opinion that I have, I still do think a lot of people that go through the trainings don't take enough responsibility for their results. And I think there are a lot of people that go through the training programs and get no results. I would always argue, well, how much is that the educator's fault?
Yeah.
And how much is that your fault? The unfortunate reality is a lot of people don't like to take responsibility for their results or their actions. They like to pass the blame onto someone else because it justifies their essentially their lack of success. And one of the things I teach, and I live by, one of the principles I live by, is I take 100% responsibility for everything. Where I am right now in my life, how much money I make, my quality of life, my relationships, is all 100% my responsibility. Some people disagree with that, but if you adopt that mindset, then it's better to take responsibility than to blame on someone else. Again, I think a lot of people are unhappy, not because they didn't get results, but because they spent a lot of money on things they were promised but didn't get. And so I rightly understand that. And so I think it's a mixture of both. I think the service delivery needs to improve, but I also think a lot of people that go through this training, they need to take responsibility for their lack of results. In terms of how I'd like to raise the standards in property education, so the training programs we've built are all completely online based, and we completely over deliver in terms of the content that's there, the live Q&A calls, the support in terms of the money that we ask, and we enroll students for. And what I essentially try and do is set a precedent, set a new standard for what's expected at what price points, knowing and hoping that the competition follow. And I think competition is a good thing. When I see people moving into the education space, improving their programs, as an educator in the industry myself, I don't feel threatened at all. If anything, I'd like the competition, because competition forces people to improve, it forces people to raise the standards, and it's better for the consumer. And so, generally that's where I know things can be improved, but bullshit catches up with people and things will only get better moving forward. It can't get worse.
Me and a friend of mine were having a conversation about this, and he's a Forex trader.
Mm-hmm.
And I would actually, I don't talk about it very often, I would actually quite like to get into the Forex side of things. But one of the reasons I don't is because there's a lot of sort of bad stigma around Forex and educators in that. Do you see it sort of going a little bit that way in the property side of things? Because I think there's a lot of people out there that are pretending that they're experts in property.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying that they've done this deal, they've done that development, they've done a lease option, whatever it might be, and they actually haven't. So what are your thoughts on the way the education space is going, and how do you cut through, like you say, how do you cut through the bullshit of people like our age that are selling these programs and they actually haven't done the deals they're claiming they have?
Good question. I think, you look at the course industry. I don't like the word course at all. I don't refer to any of my programs as courses because I think it puts it into the wrong sort of bucket and limelight. But you look at the trading or the foreign exchange currency trading space, you look at maybe the e-commerce education space, drop shipping, there's a lot of dream sellers out there and use sort of this fake lifestyle that they're living to capture the attention of people and then funnel that attention into courses, when a lot of people teaching Forex, a lot of people teaching e-com aren't really doing it. They're just making money from the education, which I don't always have a problem with because, like we've discussed, education courses is a cash flow business. I don't have a problem with people making a lot of money by teaching others. Where it becomes an issue is when they're making promises or claims that aren't true, and that transparency and honesty and authenticity disappears. And so another thing I think the property education space is missing is that radical transparency and that authenticity. And I've noticed personally a huge shift that's begun to happen over the last year or two and is continuing to happen, is that people now actually see past this sort of lifestyle marketing of things. And so you can post a nice car on social media, you can post a nice house and use it to say, oh, I've had all this because of X. People see past that now. And what really actually gets people to want to buy is demonstrating knowledge.
Yeah.
Because yeah, having a nice car, having nice apartments, whatever, captures people's attention. What really converts them is when you demonstrate your knowledge. And so now we're transitioning into a place where actually if you can demonstrate your knowledge, you're more likely to build an audience and become sort of a person of influence. And in the property space, there are people that are making claims they've done a lot of deals they haven't done. Me personally, I'm the first to admit I'm not the biggest property investor. I've not done more deals than anyone else. I'm just someone that's listed and sold over the course of probably a 4-year span as an estate agent, listed and sold over £100 million worth of property, made multiple six figures by the time I was 21. And I've spent tens of thousands of pounds on property education. I've immersed myself with some very reputable people in the property education space. And I believe I've got very extensive knowledge. Am I going to say I've done loads of lease option deals? Absolutely not. Have I done any rent-to-rent service accommodation deals? Absolutely not. And that's why I never say I have. And two, for example, my education program, when I talk about service accommodation, rent-to-rent, although I know about the strategies, that's when I bring in, like, for example, yourself, you help out with some of my students. And I very much say, well, if you want to learn more about this and really want to dive a lot deeper, then Bradley's here to sort of answer any questions you have. And obviously you've got mentorship program, coaching programs to help people as well. And so I never make any claims I can't back up. And I think people like that authenticity, they like that honesty. And again, if people don't like what they've paid for, they can have their money back.
No, I really like what you said there. And I completely agree with everything, to be honest. One thing I would say is, what are your thoughts on when a lot of people are repackaging programs? And I especially, it's on a different podcast with my friend Alex, who's actually downstairs, is we were talking about, again, he's in the Forex industry. And I sort of really do see the property education side of things going that way in the next year.
Okay.
Until someone like yourself or with my education program as well, where we're completely transparent. I mean, there's the amount of people in the past year that are in service accommodation, management companies and operators, and they're saying, we've just had this great booking through COVID, we've had contractors staying, we haven't actually seen, our industry hasn't been hit at all, the market hasn't been hit, and you're thinking, you guys are absolutely talking rubbish. So you had a global pandemic, national lockdowns, no one's allowed to travel, hotels closed, restaurants closed, everything, and you're saying your service accommodation business, the short-term holiday market, hasn't been affected. What a load of rubbish. I'll be the first person to admit that my SA business the past year has been massively hit. I mean, like I said, saying something the other day.
But you survived it though.
Yeah, of course. But they've closed Airbnb at periods of times and made it very difficult if you're going through booking.com that you've got to prove that they're key workers. So it was incredibly tough. But I just really think that the education side of property is sadly going down the same route as what the Forex, e-commerce and things like that has gone down.
Yeah, we can't let that happen. We're not going to let that happen.
No.
I think there will be people that try it, but they won't. You can't. Bullshit catches up with you very quickly in this space. And another big mistake a lot of people make is they have great marketing, great sales, but if the product's shit, you can't scale a business with a bad product.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you hit scale, the reviews catch up with you, the word of mouth, you get bad press, bad publicity, it destroys your business. And so there'll be people that try it, but they should know they should only get so far. It's only people that have spent a year, 18 months putting a program together that's really over delivers that can scale. And so, but let's talk about how you survived COVID then, because it hit. How did you then switch and think, okay, I've got to make this work? Because essentially your back is against the wall.
100%. So yeah, it's a very good question.
And what was the oh shit moment for you?
The oh shit moment was when they closed Airbnb And it's like it's one of the biggest resources for getting guests into the property. So I panic.
How as a percentage, how many of your bookings come from Airbnb?
Probably more so booking.com because it's just it's a bigger platform, but an incredible amount, a very high percentage.
Okay.
And the issue is, and like you said, what's the one thing you did that made it work? And it sounds a bit cliche, a bit cringy, but the biggest thing was the relationship side of it. Because if I've got bad relationships with my landlords and I say to them 1 month, look, I know I'm supposed to pay you £1,400 this month, but I can pay you £400, they're going to turn around and go, well, that's out of order, this is unfair. But the problem, well, no, it's actually quite a good thing, is they didn't really have anywhere else to go. So they can kick me out of their property or kick my guests out or cancel my contract or terminate it, but they're up against the wall as well.
They're all in the same boat.
Yeah, so it was very tough, but keeping good relationship with landlords and just making sure that you're not ignoring their phone calls. One of the landlords, the biggest one I deal with, he actually owns his own letting agent. So I go in and see him all the time and make sure I always say to him, look, I know there's a bit of a backlog in rents that I owe you, but I'm not going anywhere. I'll make sure I cover the debts and just build good relationships. So yeah, it was tough, but that's one of the things I'd like to be going forward, as transparent with people as possible, that property is great, you can earn lots of money, but it's not, everyone hasn't got a success story a bit like what me and you have, where it looks like we've just been estate agents, we've done a few flips and we've got developments, or where I've been the estate agent, then we made a video a year and a bit ago, Bradley's making 10 grand, now he's making 20, he's got a podcast and YouTube and life's great, because it doesn't work like that.
It is no, because what people see and what really happens are two totally different things.
That's a great point. Exactly like Instagram, where people are highlighting the best bits of their day. But it's a Tyson Fury interview where he talks about it as well. And he's saying about Instagram and the sort of damaging effects of social media, where you don't see him, I think he phrased it something like, we don't see them going for a shit or picking their nose, do you?
No.
Because no one wants to see that. Yeah. You see them where they're sitting in a nice restaurant with a nice cocktail or on the beach in that nice car. But that's not real life.
No. And I think you have to be wired a certain way in order to do what we do and enjoy it and see that it's worth it, because I'm sure you're the same amount of times I'll wake up in the middle of the night just questioning, is this all fucking worth it? Because you've got deals that are on the verge of falling through, or finance you need to raise, or you're unable to deliver on some promises that you've made, whatever it is. When there's a lot of money on the line, cash flows are tight, and you think, fuck, could I just pack this all in and get a job and just never have to deal with this stress again? But you have to be kind of a little bit sick in the head to think, you know what, it's all part of the bigger plan. This is the life I chose, and we're going to run with it.
Yeah, but I'd rather have all the hassle, all the stress, all the ups and downs, all those days where you think, I'm actually going to have a mental breakdown, this is that stressful, rather than thinking, right, I've got, and I'm not being rude to a lot of people out there, but thinking, well, I earn 15, 20, 30,000 pound a year. I'm very secure. I go to a job, I turn up at 9, I leave at 5, Monday to Friday, and I go home with no stress. But the 20, 30 grand life isn't what I want. I want my next car to be the new Bentley.
Yeah.
I'll be completely open and honest with that. I want nice things. I want nice clothes, nice holidays, nice houses. And that income won't get me there. No. So it's one or the other, in my opinion. You either choose that and then don't have... Well, it's up to you. I mean, people that are on them, the incomes and have that job, life and role are completely happy. And that's absolutely fine, but we're all different. I'd rather have loads of stress, but a load more cash.
Yeah, I joke around with a couple of our friends when we talk about this, that we talk about the majority of people don't want this life.
Yeah.
As much as they think they do, and they think, oh, how the other half live, they don't want this life.
And Carl, who owns Short Move, who manages my properties and a load of others, people talk to him about obviously setting up a management company and rent to SA is dead easy. He says, look, come and spend a day with me or go and spend a day with Bradley. It might look so nice and like it's the best job and role in the world, but for him, for example, he's dealing with people checking in and out of properties. They're turning up, they're going, this isn't what we expected, we don't like this, they want refunds and things, and I've got to deal with landlords and maintenance issues and things. And I portray Rent to SA as this dead easy, find the property. The strategy is straightforward. Simple
but not easy.
The actual process of what's happening day to day, can be a bit tiring. So, but I'd much rather do.
But you still survived throughout COVID. You've still
of course.
You've occupied a lot of the.
Yeah, I haven't lost anything.
Yeah.
In terms of properties, and actually, it's great now because I'm at a point where once you build a portfolio of sort of 20, 30 properties, you can start. People offer you deals all the time, and you go, actually, you know what, that one might maybe £300 a month, but it's not really worth it. But that one might be £500, and you can just turn deals away, which is it's a wicked place to be when people are trying to give you deals, and you're like, nah, it's okay, I don't need that one. But it's a very nice place to be. But hopefully, a few months things will be much better, and we'll all be making much more money.
So what about? So how come you didn't just pack it all in? Why was it? And how confident were you when you had that oh shit moment that you think I will find a solution for this?
I wasn't confident at all. And it's going to sound really, I don't know the exact word, not egotistical, but the only thing that bothered me was, look, I don't mind losing loads of money. That's fine. What I don't want to happen is give these back, drive down the street in a year's time, or see on social media someone's got the exact same units I have when times are good.
Yep.
And they're making a load of cash.
Yep.
Because when these deals work and you're in good times and you're in the peak of the year and in the summer when things are great, they make thousands and thousands a month. And if you've got 20, 30 properties, it potentially is 20, 30 grand. So my ego quickly kicked in. I think it's ego. And I thought, you know what? I can't let these go now through the bad times. I'll ride it and it will come good. And when we're sort of towards the end of 2021 and things are completely back to normal, I hope, I'll think, you know what, I'm so glad I never let that all go because it's making good money now.
Yeah. And I think you need that delusional sense of confidence that, yes, shit has hit the fan, but fuck it, one way or another, I'm going to figure this out.
And probably that is one of the main reasons. The biggest reason was I don't want to be a fraud. Okay. I don't want to sell a program teaching people how to do exactly what I do without having done it and doing it. I don't want to be saying, hi, my name's Bradley Clark, come and buy my program that's however many thousands. And they say, oh, Bradley, what have you got? Yeah, nothing. Why have you got nothing? Because lockdown is really tough and I get everything back. Are you going to get more? Well, to be honest, do you know what I mean? So I don't want to seem like that person that is just out there repackaging programs or pretending they've done the lot and hasn't done it. I want to actually show people. That's why in the program that I've created, there is a lesson called Behind the Curtain, which we spoke about, and it shows all the properties I've got because I want to prove to people and don't want to be that fraud or that young kid. And it doesn't help the fact that we are particularly young, trying to tell people that we are experts in our field and that they should buy from us and learn from us. Yeah. So that's probably the biggest reason I think
I call it the inconvenient truth about property. And the inconvenient truth is that you're not going to become a millionaire in the next 6 to 12 months. The inconvenient truth is that really, if you've got no experience, you've got no money, you've got no time, doing property deals, whatever someone's trying to tell you where you can do them with ease with no money and whatever, not going to happen. I think also one inconvenient truth is that actually it's harder now than it's ever been before. Because if you think the generations before us, they had much cheaper house prices. They had 100% mortgages easily available. They had less taxation, less regulation around tenants, etc. And so now if you want to win in the property game, you've got to be smarter, you've got to work harder, better educated. And really the only people that are going to win the property game are the people that are willing to play the long-term game. Yeah. Because it's not get rich quick. Yes, I think it is one of the most unshakable business models on earth that most people can get into with very little barriers to entry. But it's only those that are willing to play the long-term game that can win. Because those that play the short-term game will just get their fingers burnt. Yeah. And it's not going to be an easy ride.
And for you mentioned about obviously having a few of the businesses before, so doing sort of e-commerce stuff and events. Yeah. Why maybe it's a bit of a family thing, but why do you think it was the property side of things you wanted to get into?
Yeah, a lot of people think, so my family are estate agents. My dad has a small estate agency business. My mum runs a letting side of the business. And so, yeah, when I was a little bit younger, I'd be in the office on a Saturday or a Sunday, but I had no idea what was going on.
Do you think that's the major driving force as to where you are now?
Having entrepreneurial parents definitely helps. One of the things I always say I'm most grateful for is my upbringing. I had a very healthy and balanced upbringing where I wasn't never given too much. I was never spoiled, but never really went without. If anything, my parents just taught me some really key principles, such as, anything is really possible if you stick with it. We were never allowed to use the word can't.
I remember you saying
in our household, and so things like that definitely helped. I was supported when I decided I didn't want to go to university, which again, something a lot of people don't have the benefit of. They're sort of quickly funneled and told they need to go to university. But for me, it was actually just by pure chance. I came across, I think it was maybe a Facebook advert promoting a one-day property event. Don't get me wrong, I went on trading courses and events. I went on loads of other things, but it was just the property thing for some reason that just resonated and stuck with me. I don't think it was anything to do with the sort of the estate agency background that my family were in, because again, I knew nothing about property when I was leaving school and decided I don't want to go to university and get a business degree and learn from someone that's never run a business before. I wanted to make money with property, and it just seemed like it made sense to me. Don't get me wrong, I still continue to try things. I tried trading. I tried, again, e-commerce again, just never took off. If I stuck with it, yeah, I'm sure I could have pulled it off. But real estate is just that one thing where I thought, this excites me. This fuels a fire in me. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. You ask a lot of people, are they interested in trading? The majority of the population, if you ask 10 people on the street, most will be like, not really. E-commerce, not really. Online businesses, not really. Ask them, do you want to sort of make money with property? Most people say, yeah, because it's something they can touch and feel. Most people have a family member or a friend that's a property investor or developer. And think about it, most people at some point in their life
will own a property
and make money from property. And I think anyone listening to this, if they don't own a property, maybe their parents do, maybe friends do, more than likely they've made money with their property. The property price has gone up in value and they've increased their wealth through owning property. And so people can relate to it and they don't think it's a scam.
But the most exciting thing at the moment is, exactly like with my business, you don't need to own a property. So
yeah,
a bit like, and everyone uses the comparison of Uber not owning their own cars,
sure,
Airbnb not owning their hotels, Amazon not owning their stock, and we're at it's just a wicked time to be in at the moment where you can go make 500, 600 quid out of someone else's property you don't own just by a few simple things, learning how to communicate with people, getting yourself educated and having the confidence to go out there and do it.
Yeah.
And I don't see any real reason why anyone needs to be stuck in their job they're doing at the moment, because you don't need 100 grand or 20, 30 grand to go get a buy to let. Another thing that's interesting as well is, probably 20, 30 years ago, it was all, if you're going to buy a property, you need a buy to let, you need a mortgage, that's the only way you're going to do it. Whereas now we've got HMOs, we've got rent to HMO, rent to SA, lease options, buy, refurbish, refinance, developments, loads of different things and loads of different ways to make property.
Yeah.
So I think if anyone's going to do it, they need to realise that if they're in a job they're not happy with, and this isn't a sales pitch, but if you're in a job, maybe working in a supermarket or working in an office and you think this is horrible, there are ways you can get out of that. And actually, my brother was sort of stuck in, he's a chef, and he was sort of stuck in that role, and I think it sort of started to affect his mental health a little bit. And so he's now stopped drinking, stopped smoking, feeling healthier. He's running a lot and feeling better. And now he's started talking to me a lot more about saying, well, I actually sent him my program the other day, and he critiqued the hell out of it. I didn't see little things just where I was looking at the camera funny or something.
Sure.
But now he's starting to get involved in property because he's realised that you, without sounding cringy, you can really do what you want and make as much money as you want. So I just think property is such a great avenue for people to be able to go do that.
You just have to know that it's possible
Yeah.
and what is possible. And that's the first, as I always say, is the first step. Just know that number one, it's possible and it's possible for you. And then just go out and do it. But yeah, the service accommodation business model, you're just an operator, not an owner. And it's no different to maybe a big hotel chain in London that operates a hotel. I'm trying to think of a name off the top of my head. Maybe like a Marriott hotel. For example, if we think of a Marriott hotel in Mayfair, they probably don't own the freehold. You don't own the building.
Yeah.
They're just have a lease, long lease, and they're an operator, and they just take that building, convert it into a hotel, rent it out. You're just doing that same thing, but on a much smaller scale with a lot less barriers to entry.
Yeah.
So you're not reinventing the wheel. You're just taking a concept and doing it on a much smaller level.
Definitely. No, well, this wasn't particularly a scripted podcast.
No.
I haven't got a ton more to say. Have you got any more thoughts on anything that's going on in the world?
I was just going to ask you, like, are you running every day, off the alcohol, eating healthy?
I mean, it is just completely teetotal. It's green tea in the morning.
Yeah.
It's lots of like protein and running.
Vitamins.
Yeah, just so you can
4 litres of water a
You
day.
can see my skin's looking very healthy. Teeth
Yep.
are nice and white.
Mhm.
So no smoking, no drinking, and just feeling really, really good about life.
Love it. Meditating 6 hours a day.
Yeah, 100%. Reading books. Just really looking after my health and well-being. So yeah, it's really, really good.
That's what we love to hear.
That is absolutely rubbish. But no, it's good to have you on.
I think one last thing I want to finish on,
Go on.
and I know I'm the guest, but I want to flip this because out of probably maybe the guests you've had so far, I'm someone that's maybe known you for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And again, to give a lot of people confidence, you'd probably be the first to admit that textbook smart, or like...
Are you just trying to do a polite way of calling me dumb?
No, not at all. But I think there's a lot of people that will look at us as young property entrepreneurs that are doing okay for themselves.
Yeah.
They think we must be extremely high functioning, that we've got above average IQ levels. And this is for me to really tell your audience that if Bradley Clark can do it,
Okay, now.
no, I think it, but it just comes down to how bad do you really want it?
Yeah.
And you want it bad, like you're pretty obsessed with your goals, what you want.
Yeah, 100%.
And you've got the level of confidence that I'll just figure it out along the way. And you just go out and do it.
Yeah.
And you're just not afraid to have the conversations with people and just see what happens. Too many people think they're not smart enough or they're not experienced enough, but you're testament to the fact that you can just go out and do it.
I think that's a compliment, but
No, it is.
I'm not quite sure. One thing I'd say is, so when I was at school, and I went to a pretty good school, to be fair.
Sure.
I went private school, so my brother, and we've done different things. I don't know exactly how proud my parents are of both of us. But when I was doing my GCSEs, I didn't do very well in my GCSEs, and I wanted to go into sixth form.
What results did you get? Do you know?
I've got a pretty bad memory as well, so I got like, well, it wasn't. So I think you had to have maybe it's like 5 Bs to get into sixth form.
Okay.
And I got like a mixture of like maybe 1 or 2 Bs, Cs, Ds, and Es. Like really like screwed with science because I just didn't pay attention.
Yeah.
And the annoying thing was, well, not annoying, but my teachers were also annoyed at me because they said you could have done this dead easy, you just weren't interested. I know that's a bit of a cop out for a teacher to say, but they said, but you always were talking about going and doing gardening because I was always working when I was at school. When I wanted to just get home, not do my homework, go out and make some money, or at the weekend make some money.
Yes, you're doing like house clearances as well, weren't you? I remember this.
Yeah, so I started working from super young. That's because sort of my dad instilled into me that if you want something, you got to go out and work for it. And he always worked when he was super young. And the headmaster, so I didn't get the grades I needed to get in sixth form. And I went and saw the headmaster What's his name?
Call him out.
Oh, what's his name? Mr. Johnson? Mr. Wilson? I can't think. Anyway.
Mr. Johnson's a headmaster's name.
Yeah, he was actually a lovely bloke, and he said, "Look, to be honest, Bradley, I think if you struggled with your GCSEs, you're really going to struggle with sixth form, and it is the best decision that's ever been made for me, because if I'd have gone into sixth form, I would have really struggled at it, really stressed out, and still be thinking, you know what, this is great because I can go to university, but I still want to be out working. Then I would have gone to university. As you know, I do sort of often quite like a drink, so I might have gone to university, really overdone it with lots of different things that are bad for you, and then I'd be sort of a year or two on from where I am now, and not achieved anywhere near as much as I have. So the point I'm saying is, what you're saying about not being academic or overly clever, no, I'm not, but I try not to doubt myself too much. So,
Shouldn't.
I mean, I have a conversation with my old man quite a lot about different things, and he says, but what if this doesn't work, and what if that's not working? But I don't doubt I'll not do well. So
It's just a question of how and a question of when.
Yeah, so I know I've got things going on with the program, which is great. I've got things going on with Short Move. I've got things going on with my essay business. Got the podcast. Got YouTube. Going for a meeting tomorrow in Birmingham with a guy that's set up children's care homes. That's what I want to move into. So I never get worried, but I never get worried that it'll all go wrong. I just believe that if I keep trying, I keep working hard, it's going to come good eventually, surely. I'm doing everything I can to make it go that way. So, like you say, I might not be the cleverest bloke in the world, but I'll have a good crack at it and try and make it work.
Comes back to what I said earlier, that delusional sense of just confidence and self-belief and certainty that one way or another, I'll make it work. So,
yeah. But thanks for calling me thick, mate. Anyway, it's really nice to have you on.
Pleasure to be here, mate.
And if you haven't got anything else to mention, what about mentioning your social media and your programs? So where can people find you, get in contact with you, they want to learn developments?
Jump onto YouTube, Tyler Newman. I'm sure you'll find me. Reach out to me on Instagram if you want to find out more about sort of programs I offer or just how I can help you. I'm not actively trying to sell anyone anything. And if anything, sort of the programs we offer are application only anyway, because we want to make sure you're a good fit for us and we're a good fit for you and we can help you. So just reach out on there, drop me a message. The links will all be on there. And yeah, I'm just on a mission to help as many people as I can this year, because I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of help and guidance along my journey. And it's only right I pass the baton on and help others. So Instagram, Tyler Newman, YouTube, Tyler Newman.
They can see all the cool stuff you're up to. Nice cars, nice houses.
I sold my car actually on Monday.
I heard about that, yeah.
Yeah.
What was the reason?
So I bought the car, Lamborghini.
Pretty much the car of your dreams.
Yeah, probably Bradley heard me talk about it for years and years and years until I actually bought it. Bought a Lamborghini Huracan Performante, I think July last year. Owned it for 7 months, put 8,000 miles on it, and then had an offer come in last week from the dealer that sold it to me. Had a buyer that offered me more money than I paid for it. And so it was an offer I couldn't refuse. So it was like putting a kid up for adoption, but I'm sort of glad I did it and it was the right, sensible decision.
Just made you late for my podcast, but let's not talk about that.
Yeah, made me late for Bradley's podcast.
Sort of wrecked all the diary, had to rearrange everything, but we won't talk about it, it's okay.
Yeah.
So what are you going to get next?
I don't know. Obviously I feel a bit of having a car is having two cars, which I was having in London, where I live half the time in the Midlands, is a massive liability.
Yeah.
So it feels like a nice weight off my shoulders. So I might be sensible for a few months and not buy anything. Then for the summer, I might be a little bit silly and just get something completely stupid. I don't know. But car's my passion, and any sense of logic completely goes out the window when I walk into a showroom. So I try not to go into any car showrooms with wallet in hand. And yeah, but I'm a big fan of the Lamborghini brand. The brand sort of resonates with me and my personality quite a lot. So we'll see.
Sounds good, mate.
Yeah.
Well, again, thanks for coming on. And be good to have you back on in the next few months when you've done more about the development side of things, just to see how it's all going.
Yep.
Be good to keep up as well.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
No worries, mate. And we'll catch you in the next one.